Welcome to Cover to Cover Book Beat. I'm your host, Roger Nichols. One of the great joys of interviewing authors is being able to get on the ground floor of a new author who has the promise of great things. And that's the case with our guest today. David Boito studied screenplay at UCLA and has been involved in the entertainment world for a number of years. He was broadcast producer for 116 episodes of the TV series New Girl, in-house producer for 36 episodes of the TV series Homeland, and he wrote an episode ahead of the class starring Howard Hesseman, formerly Dr. Johnny Fever of WKRP in Cincinnati, beloved of all us radio guys. He's authored short stories and been published in the UCLA literary journal Westwind, among others. But today, we're here to talk about his debut novel, Valley Fliers, a Literary Titan Book Award winner. We're very pleased to welcome David Boito.
Thank you so much, Roger. Pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, my understanding is that you live with your wife and son in the San Fernando Valley near a real miniature airfield that inspired Valley Flyers, and you dedicated the book to remote control aviators.
That is correct. It's a great it's in a park over here, right near the Van Nuys Airport, which is here in the San Fernando Valley, and it's a great place. It's people of all kinds commune together and talk and practice aviation with small remote control planes.
That's fascinating to have that. Now,
Yeah.
my understanding is that Valley Flyers started as a screenplay, then became a novel, kind of a reverse, whatever you call it, adaptation.
That is true. I did begin the work as a screenplay, as I am also a screenwriter, and I was really inspired by this place as a milieu for drama, and a thrilling adventure. So yeah, I began it as a screenplay. I'm a big fan of the Spielberg movies of the '90s, where the kids get together, a la the Goonies, and have to save the day. And I thought it would make a good setting for a story like that in that universe.
Well, I could see it visually as a screenplay very easily with all the dogfights and the just watching all of the characters interact on this. This would be fun. I'm hoping somebody options that pretty quick because it'll be fun to watch.
Thank you.
All righty. The difference between screenplay and novelization, it's a whole different focus on it because of the limitations of both media.
Indeed. As a screenwriter, you're typically encouraged in brevity. A typical screenplay reader, professional screenplay reader at a studio doesn't want to look at a page with, thick prose all over it. That person wants to look at a page with brief bits of dialogue, brief, pithy descriptions, and so forth. A typical screenplay is about 105 pages. So I took that screenplay and I really just loved this story and this world. So I decided to go back to prose with it, and that's what I did. I had quite a bit of experience in prose, having studied creative writing at UCLA with a guy named Brian Moore, who's an Irish novelist, since passed away, but was a very great inspiration to me. And so it was a good opportunity to get back into that world and tell the story so I could, take it directly to the readers without having to go through the intermediary of a film crew and producers and directors and that type of thing.
Yeah. And you've been on the other side of that too, so you know how that works.
I have, yeah. A film is something where a lot of people have to get together, and it's a combined effort, and which is very cool. In this case, I just decided, at least as a springboard, to put the story on the page so that readers, could live through the story and see it for what it is.
Yeah, and I'm grateful because I always appreciate having a physical copy, but I also downloaded it as well because sometimes it's easier when you're reviewing to cut and paste your notes than having to write them out by hand, which my handwriting's so bad I can't understand what I've actually written. So I appreciate that. And by the way, it's on right now for an incredible low price. If you're interested in it all, listen here, please do check because it's
Thank you. Yeah, there's a promotional until I believe the 21st of this month.
All right. Well, I won't say how low because it's amazingly low, but I will just say it's well worth your time and effort. We should be talking a little bit about the setup here. Um, I don't want to give anything away, but I do have, I think it's the blurb that's on the back of the book. Can I read that, or would you like to
Oh,
describe it?
please, please go ahead.
Okay. So our hero is Jay Smalley, 17. He loves remote control aviation, spends most of his time with model planes at the San Fernando Valley miniature airfield near his home. When a newcomer comes to the field and boldly practices flight maneuvers with a military issue drone, he suspects he may be an assassin who uses drones to kill. So he rallies his skeptical Valley Fliers to surveil the suspect in a move that puts everything he cares about at risk: his scholarship to flight school, his budding romance with Cassie, a fellow remote flyer, and his relationship with Kent, the father figure who manages the tiny airfield like it's Edwards Air Force Base. And line it up and give the answer, sir, yes, sir. Is Jay deluded, or is it the only chance to stop an act of terrorism that'll put hundreds, if not thousands, of lives in jeopardy? You gotta love that. And I have to say, I think what was one of the pitches for it? Let's see if I can find that. Shoot, I make notes and sometimes I can't find them as well, but it's something like Top Gun meets something else.
Yeah, basically Top Gun meets the Goonies. It's you could inject several different films
Hmm.
in that comparison, but it's a story for young adults that is meant to inspire teenagers. But it's also a movie that adults will enjoy as well. But yeah, it's set in a world where the young people really are, seeing something that the jaded, people a little bit more advanced in age aren't seeing, and so they're the ones that have to take matters into their own hands. I've always loved stories like that.
Yeah. It kind of gets the vibe of some of the old Hardy Boys mysteries as well, which came out by the hundreds.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. And this is something interesting that somebody made the comment that it is also echoes a bit of Hitchcock's Rear Window.
Indeed, a big fan of Hitchcock and a big fan of that film, and certainly I would say that's an influence in telling the story. I could only aspire to be as masterful a storyteller as Hitchcock, but yeah, certainly there's elements of Rear Window. Back in the day, Jimmy Stewart had his telephoto lens. Nowadays, we have much more advanced means of surveillance.
Hmm.
These drones that are becoming ubiquitous and are very cost, next to nothing to purchase, are means, that I don't think Hitchcock perhaps ever imagined to spy on people. So I wanted to, explore that aspect of our contemporary society a little more.
It's interesting. I'm always a fan of the telling detail about, particularly about Jay. He would rather chew on an unsolved crime any day than a pack of chewing gum. I love that. That's that. That's his character right there.
Indeed, indeed.
And you mentioned that you described the fact that on his walls are posters for Ancient Aliens and X Files: The Truth Is Out There and Chariots of the Gods and all that stuff, but also books about survival like the Worst Case Scenario Handbook, which is quoted a couple of times in there. And because he's susceptible to all of this, he doesn't get the respect of his friends there in the club as much, and they're always ragging him about that. So that makes for an interesting conflict as well.
Yeah, that's the theme that's explored in literature and film, I think, frequently, and it's one of my favorites. The underdog, the guy who's the outsider. He's not the popular one, but he sees stuff that others don't see. And he's looking for what's behind the curtain in this great universe of ours, and
Yeah.
where the mysteries revealed and things like that. So Jay is certainly one of those people.
And I like the fact that, and without giving anything away, but on the way through, it's balanced back and forth. You lean one way, you lean the other way as each revelation comes out. And I love that. The thing that makes you reconsider everything you read before, go, oh, that changes everything. I love that.
Thank you, Roger.
All right. Oh, and another thing I like is the line that says, "I can't help it, I'm a dot connector." That's a good one.
Yeah,
Or just
that's Jay. Yeah, he likes to look beneath the surface. That he just he's seeing something, but what else is there? And so that's I'm glad that that phrase resonated with you.
yeah, and you also have a nifty little cast of his friends there. Uh, I don't know how you pronounce it. Zhao, Zhou.
Zoo,
Zhu. Okay,
zoo.
his friend who is a good buddy, and you got Hector, known as Cheeto because of his orange fingers all the time. I suspect. And then you have Darius Johnson, and Dimitri, or Tree to his friends, who pulls up in his Segway. I love that. So you've got and then you've got Cassie, um, this new woman who moves in from Texas, and wants to practice her RC. By the way, with her, and I love the fact that her name is Lady Hawk. That's her handle. Did you have fun with that part?
I did indeed. Cassie's, one of my favorite characters, and I like strong, female characters that are sort of, in the boys. I would say that remote control flying, you probably see more men there than women.
Hmm.
And but Cassie's wants to explore that world, and she's very good at it. And so she sort of breaks the mold of the boys' network there at the airfield.
Yeah. The Valley Flyers group, as thus the title. One of the things that I found interesting, because I hadn't considered this, not being somebody who's into that, but there are layers of different kinds of RC, where you have ones that are hooked up with a cable. You have the drones, you have the fixed wing, and you also have helicopters, miniature helicopters, as well as all of those, and they all play parts in this.
That is correct. Some of the older planes are analog, they call them, and
Hmm.
they are powered by actual what's called glow plug fuel. So actual fuel in combustion engines, and but the newer planes are powered mostly by these lithium polymer batteries,
Yeah.
and so. But there's still people, the old school flyers that like the glow plug
Hmm.
engines, and that's what they want to stick with. So yeah, you have a diversity of people, and then of course there's the people that fly the drones, and there's a rivalry between the drone pilots or the quadricopter pilots and the fixed wing pilots, because the fixed wing, I would say, you have to have a little bit more experience as a pilot to operate a fixed wing plane, and there's more of a learning curve there, whereas the drone, with your cell phone, you can control it. It's all, the app can do a lot of the work for you, and it's also more stable with the four rotors. You're a lot more stable as an aircraft.
Right. I've
So
actually,
yeah, I wanted to portray all those different. There's
yeah,
all these niches in the world that are fun to explore.
and I know at least at one point, uh, uh, he takes Cassie out and has her go around and around in a circle with a plane that's on a wire, and she says, "I didn't sign up for kite flying." I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, those planes still exist, and but yeah, she hadn't flown one, and there are, and then the fun part, I won't give away the scene, but you have to practice flying those particular planes, because there's an element of motion sickness that's associated with them that
Exactly.
you have to run
Exactly.
through.
And speaking of that, I love people that send me to the dictionary or for new words or new concepts. And I got a couple of Polish words out of this, and there's no way I could pronounce the first one, which is Polish for she's fine. Can you pronounce that thing? It's about 16 letters, and they're all a lot of consonants.
Yeah, I can. I don't have it right in front of me now. I'd have to call it up. I don't know if I want to waste your time, but
Yeah, it's something like Napiginska, which
yes,
means
I have some friends that speak Polish, and it it's a tough language.
it is.
But I wanted to include a little bit of that. That was part of the inspiration for that character.
And the other one is I'll take a stab at it, Slozani for crazy, sick, cuckoo, nutso. I may be incorporating that in my vocabulary because I can see the use of that. You also
That's great.
threw some new concepts at me, and I had no idea that you had something called first-person viewing goggles, which you put, and you can see through the drone's camera from
That is
that.
correct.
What?
Not only the drone or the fixed wing plane.
Sure.
That's a new, relatively new within the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. Practice where you put on a helmet and you're literally seeing through the eyeballs of the aircraft. And that also requires a certain level of skill and practice. At the airfield that inspired the book, you're not allowed to fly that way without what's called a spotter
Yeah.
or a partner who doesn't have the goggles on, who can, who's right next to you, who can tap you on the shoulder, if you lose your way, because that can happen, obviously.
Well, you have a very fixed viewpoint. You can't see what's around you. You are looking forward as the progress, and so you can see maybe there is a plane coming towards you that you need to avoid and something like
Correct.
that.
Yeah. So hence the spotter.
That was fascinating to me. And then you, well, some great terms from the aerobatic stuff. We'll get to that in a second. But the other thing that I thought was fascinating is a drone with a tattered bed sheet off of it, kids flying around as if it's a ghost. I've never thought about that, but that'd be fun.
Yeah, those are used in dogfighting aerobatic
Hmm.
practice, wherein rather than actually trying to shoot somebody down per se, they have this trailing streamer,
Oh,
and the object of the game is to cut your opponent's streamer, and therein you win the dogfight. So you still have to get fairly close to their aircraft. It requires skill so that you don't have a midair collision, which can be catastrophic, certainly
yeah.
to your plane and people on the ground. But yeah, it's a fun game.
Yeah, I could see that being fun. I'm probably looking up YouTube videos of that after this.
Yeah,
And then you've got all kinds of fun descriptions of the various maneuvers that people make, the arrowhead loop and Chandelle and some of the other ones. Years ago, our little Rotary Club in the Dalles used to hold an air show. We hired some people to come in, and it was fascinating because I was doing PA, and then I turn it over to the professionals when they do the air show. And they did something called a Launchevac. Is that something you're familiar with?
no, I'm actually not.
Uh,
Tell me.
well, it may be described differently here, where the plane goes straight up, cuts the engine, and falls back, wobbling and spinning and whatnot, and then powers on and goes out of it. It's similar to one maneuver you describe in the book.
Yeah, believe me, I've always heard that referred to as the falling leaf.
Ah, I think
Uh,
probably that's Polish for falling leaf.
yeah, but yeah, I mean that is a thrilling stunt,
Hmm.
to witness. Certainly in a full size aircraft or even in a scale aircraft,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of skill to pull out of that dive.
Yeah, it's interesting because I watched I listened to your interview with the RC model group, and they had fun talking shop with you, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
One of the characters in the book, I won't say who, says the flying field has always been my temple, my church, and my gym. I like that too. That's again a telling detail to somebody. Uh,
Indeed, I think a lot of people feel that way about flying. And in fact, I watched your interview with Stephen Kuntz, who
oh yeah,
is a pilot, and he had some interesting things to say about that as well. And how people now in commercial aircraft, they close the blinds, so they're not even looking outside. I mean, that's the joy of flying, is
yeah,
looking out at this
yeah,
viewpoint of the bird, and they're just. He talked about how they're just on their phones. I that resonated with me.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm with you there. I've flown some, but Oh, I have to tell you a story after we get off here, but it's a whole different feel perspective when you're up there. In fact, I'm going to quote you. Get back up here in my notes because this one this is poetry here. Once he reached altitude, it was a whole different world. The problems of everyday life slipped away like soap suds under a warm shower. He felt clean, fresh, energized. You had to be in the moment all the time. When you had the helm of an aircraft, it could easily cause tremendous damage or loss of life. That's a really good description of that feeling. And I know you're not a modeler yourself, but you must have some association with it.
I do. I do other things. I mean, you get that in the moment feeling can come with other activities as well. I'm a mountain biker, and certainly when you're at the top of a mountain and coming down the hill with some speed, you have to be in the moment, and there is an exhilaration in that moment where you are there in the present. And I think that pilots experience the same thing from what they've described to me. And so certainly Jay has that feeling, and the character I believe that you're referring to, Oren,
Yeah.
in that quote, also feels
Yeah.
that.
And it's fascinating to see how this develops. And I again won't give away anything. I will say there were a lot of surprises here, and there's some amazing action that I dearly want to see put on the big screen at some point. So again, I hope all that's well. Um, is there anything we haven't covered we want to make sure that our listeners know?
Again, it would be just looking to increase the readership of the book. So anybody that's interested, please check it out. Available at the normal places: Amazon, Barnes and Noble,
And your
et
local
cetera, et
independent
cetera.
booksellers, yes.
Yes, I just did an event. There's a local bookseller here in Southern California, one of the few local bookstores left, named Vroman's, and they're doing a little promotional on it. We did a podcast, a roundtable with some other local authors. So I love, in local bookstores. So absolutely, if you have a local bookstore and could pick it up there, that would be fantastic. You might have to order it
Hmm.
from them, but that still supports the local brick and mortar bookstore community.
We appreciate that. Let's talk about your website.
Uh, www.davidboito.com, DAVIDBOITO.com.
Okay. You've been very generous with your time today. I've taken more time than I told you I was going to take because I was fascinated talking with you. Our guest today, David Boito. The book is Valley Fliers. Highest possible recommendation. Buy it. You'll love it. Thanks so
Thank
much
you,
for being
Roger.
with us.